The Actuaries Institute recently published a paper on developing the retirement income framework. In this conversation, David Orford, founder of Optimum Pensions and long-time advocate for better retirement products, talks to the paper's author, Associate Professor Anthony Asher, about longevity risk, retirement income options, and the trade-off between income that lasts for life, access to cash, and leaving a bequest. We hope you enjoy it.
Anthony, I'd just like to start by asking you a question, a very basic question. How long have lifetime income streams been around?
We know that they developed life tables in Roman times, so that 3rd century AD, so at least 1800 years ago, they had sold enough annuities to be able to price them relatively accurately. So yes, it was quite common in those days and has been used by governments particularly since then, but they've been around for pretty close to 2000, well, at least probably 2000 years.
Yeah, and they're the ideal instrument, aren't they? Because what people's need in this retirement is for an income, and this is a thing that provides exactly that. So it's 100% matching of need with the ability to pay. Is there any reason why a member at retirement shouldn't purchase a lifetime income stream?
One of the misunderstandings I think that I have come across, we come across quite frequently, is people think, well, you need money as a buffer. And the problem with that is that a buffer is something that you use to absorb unexpected costs or perhaps a drop in income, but you need then to top it up again. A buffer that lasts for the rest of your lifetime doesn't help you at all as to know how much to spend over each year. So I've asked around, and I think I've been thinking about this for many years, that actually how much cash do you need as a buffer? And possibly something as much as six months, maybe a year, is probably a year's expenditure is all you need. So once you've got more than a year's cash, you probably should turn it into an annuity. Because even amounts as small as $50,000 can produce $200 a month, which can make a big difference if you're only on $2,000 a month in income.
Yes, I guess, and also our government has given concessions under the age pension that people with lifetime incomes get a higher age pension than if they're not on age pensions. So the government certainly wants this to happen. I guess if people die early, the two risks, aren't they? People die early or live too long, which is the greatest risk? If you die early, you're dead and it doesn't matter. But if you live too long, which is the other risk, you'll end up in a caravan in your daughter's back garden being fed food scraps. So, but everybody's got that need and those risks. Now tell me, one of the things our group's done is look at the software that financial planners use. And we've found out that the planners use software that makes an assumption that people die at their life expectation. What's wrong with that?
Oh, well, yeah, no, very, very obviously, it's fine for those who die in time. And you know, one of the jokes about actuaries is we expect you to be dead on time. And I think it does work for people while they've got assets and if they don't live into their 90s. But now almost half the population is going to live into their 90s. And nowadays, you know, there are a lot of people over 90. I think one of the reasons why we don't hear more about annuities is that those folk who've run out of money in their 90s because they didn't take appropriate financial instruments earlier on, very often blame themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's instead of blaming the system that didn't persuade them to do what they needed to, they actually end up without adequate support or living at a lower standard of living in their 90s than they would have done if they had made their plans better. And very often it's women. They're more likely to live longer, and very often their husbands are more likely to spend their money. So I do think we need, it's part of the question of considering the potentially vulnerable of the middle classes, the middle group of people, the people who earn more than 25, more than the bottom 25% and less than the top 25%, that middle 50% need to plan for an old age that will go well into their 90s.
I think that's right. I guess the people don't realise yet because account-based pensions haven't been around for long enough. But if you project the account-based pension, you'll find out that it reduces just after the life expectation. It starts to reduce in real terms. And so people start to run out of money. As they run out, they get higher age pension, which costs the taxpayer, of course. But if they'd taken a lifetime income stream, they would have had roughly 30% more income. So, yeah, that's a problem with the account-based pension, which people haven't realised yet. I guess the other thing about life expectation isn't it, that death is random. We don't know when we're going to die. I mean, most of my life, I thought that my life expectation would be that of my parents. But my mother died at age 72 of a heart attack. She had very high cholesterol. I've had high cholesterol too, but it's now under 5. So, you know, whatever she died of, I'm not going to die of.
Yeah, that's right.
Died at 93, so I have great expectations. I'm going to outlive the actuary's forecast. Now tell me, what do you think is the purpose of superannuation?
Well, the way I see it is that it's to spread your lifetime earnings over your lifetime, so that you put aside money while you're working, so that you don't, so that you've got money to spend later on when you're retired. Which, yeah, it seems very obvious that's an income that requires an income stream, and even if you don't, however you do it, you've got to convert the lump sum that you've accumulated, the assets you've accumulated, into an income stream at some point if you're ever going to spend it. And I mean, you know, I made the point, I think, in some of the articles that I've written about the paper, the Retirement Income Working Group paper, just dialogue paper, is that actually under COVID, we need retirees to spend their money. It's good for them and it's good for the economy. So that makes, in a sense, the introduction of appropriate instruments and advice at retirement really very important for everyone.
Yeah, I think our industry has been concentrating too much on the accumulation stage, but really the most important stage is post-retirement, isn't it? This is where the objectives get realised. This is what it's all about. The accumulation stage is like the foreplay, but really the post-retirement is the reality. Hey, look, Anthony, one of the things you said in the paper, and I'll quote, Australia needs products to manage the longevity risk, which better aligns the superannuation system with its objectives. You mentioned Section 52FF of the SIS Act. So why do you say that?
Okay, so what Section 52 is what the covenants the trustees have to have, and they've got covenants on investment and on insurance and on their ethical obligations to the members. And what the government has suggested, and I think we certainly believe is a great idea, is that there should be in that Section 52 a requirement that the trustees think about post-retirement payments and give their members the option to take out an annuity or an account-based pension, or to take the cash out, which is permitted, but make very clear to the members what the advantages and disadvantages are of each. So currently one of the major issues is the trustees are reluctant to give advice, but what the actual consequences are is of not giving advice. You're saying, well, we can't tell you what's good for you, but everyone else takes an account-based pension. Well, obviously, they think the account-based pension is acceptable. Mm. And so that is advice, and it's not good advice. And so we've really got to switch the onus from the situation where the trustees are basically saying, we can't afford to give advice. We're not going to give you a good option, to a point where they've got to give the option and they've got to explain the options carefully, and then people can make decisions appropriately.
So really, you're saying, I agree with you. If you don't give advice, you are actually doing that. But isn't education lacking here? The super fund trustees possibly need education on lifetime products. Advisors need education, and I think the consumer needs a lot of education. I mean, you mentioned the behavioural economics team. Can you tell us a bit about that and what consumers' attitudes are towards lifetime products?
Well, the research shows that when you explain things appropriately, explain the annuity not as an investment that's going to explode and disappear when you die. Not that that concerns you at all, because you will be dead. But if you explain it as a way of what I call a harvesting plan, basically you've accumulated the harvest. Now you need a plan to spend it. Once explained that way, most people will buy annuity or put some of their money into a lifetime income stream of some sort. So the research shows clearly that's the case. The government's done a little bit of work on nudging, and nudging is a situation where you basically put defaults into the system. So instead of saying, well, if you do nothing, we'll pay you the lump sum, we say if you do nothing, you'll get an income stream. You've actually got to act to take a lump sum or to take an account-based pension. That would nudge people towards doing what is the default, because I think, well, partly people are just idle. I think that if someone's done something for you, well, that's probably just leave it, don't do anything. But also, it's actually implicit advice. If I say this is what the default is, I'm actually saying to you, this is what I think you should have. But I'm not enforcing you to do anything. I'm giving you a choice, and that's treating people as adults. So the absence of a decent default is a problem. But I should say, and this is a little bit more controversial, is it seems very clear that the financial industry as a whole has problems with these long-term financial instruments like lifetime annuities because there's less money in it for them. And that's a serious issue. So we quote this in the paper, that the British people who have gone to advisors to ask what to do with their post-retirement pots, they call them there, the lump sums, are 1/5 as likely to take an annuity as those people who actually make the decision based on the advice given by the government website. And you've got to say, well, either the government website is incredibly biased, or maybe the advisors are shifting people into drawdown products that give them greater commissions. And for the employers, keep the funds under management at higher levels. So I think this needs to be put out on the table, that there is a bias within the industry, which explains it's not a lack of education. It's a lack of people. If given the chance, people will understand. It's people haven't actually thought through the forces that are going on when the decision is made to convert your pre-retirement to your post-retirement product.
Yeah, well, I think people are very unfamiliar with this product, apart from the public servants who want to keep them. But I guess the research, the beta research, the research that your business school has done, the research the Melbourne Business School has done, shows that more than 50% of retirees, if they had the product explained to them, would choose a lifetime income stream. So I think people understand what it is. I guess the other point you made is just thinking from a product manufacturer like a super fund or a life insurer. They spend maybe 40 years from when someone's 25 till they're 65 doing all the work to accumulate the money. And then when they get to 65, the person's got another 20, 30, maybe 40 years to live. And the assets are far larger. They're like 2, 3, 4 times larger than they were pre-retirement. You think, surely you'd make more money out of the post-retirees, this is the super fund, than pre-retirement. But yeah, I think your point about advisors, but I wonder if it really applies to Australia, Anthony, because we have the best interest duty here, don't we? And that, I think, subsequent to the Banking Royal Commission, I think the best interest duty is going to drive financial planners to giving the best advice. And the best advice is to have at least some of your money in a lifetime product, don't you think?
I hope so. It's still to be worked through, and there's debate about the extent to which the best interest duty will actually not will turn into something where the financial advisor has the freedom to actually give the best advice, or it's going to turn into something like another long checklist that, as long as they've checked the boxes, their clients can go off and do the same as they've always done. For your decision post-retirement, am I going to get protection for my mortality risk, the risk of not living long enough? And then what am I going to do with my investments? Am I going to get a better deal by investing in government stock at 1% interest, plus inflation maybe? Or am I going to get a better deal with investment freedom by investing in equities and property? And over the long term, there's no doubt that the government stock has been a low return, relatively low risk. Well, with low risk, as long as you've got inflation protection. If you don't have inflation protection, it's very risky, particularly with the current QE and all the possibilities of what might go on in the future with inflation. So most people want at least part of their investments in equities, and the variable annuities with no guarantees, or with guarantees if you want some small guarantees, offer a much better deal. And I was just looking at the paper yesterday on the systems in the Netherlands and Denmark, which have the best systems in the world. We come third after them. They're bigger and score more on the Mercer points, etc. And they are switching to variable annuities because they offer such a good deal. Now, the trouble has been that they've been illegal in Australia until 3-4 years ago. 2017. So, and no one has come out with, no funds are yet come out with an option. I'm into the option. I want, when I retire, that's where I want my money to be, because I want that investment freedom and I want mortality protection.
But our retirement income working group has found out in one of the surveys we've done that financial advisors have tended to ignore increases in longevity. Not only have they used the Australian life tables and focused on life expectation, but they've ignored future increases. So it seems to me that if the consumer and the planner took the increases into account, they'd find lifetime products more valuable. What do you think?
Yeah, that's true. But of course, they think the AVP is more valuable because their life expectancy is so short. But so yes, that is part of the story, is to focus on the fact that half the people are going to live longer, and that people are living longer in general, so that that you can actually. It's really interesting if you just graph the age at which people die, and you look at it over the years. You can actually see the age going up every year. So it's gone up from, in the last 5 years, it's gone up from sort of 88.5 to 90. Or to just under 90. It'll be perhaps a little bit lower this year because of COVID, but it's moving up. It's moving up fairly fast. That's where more people die at 90 than any other age. It's the mode. It's not the average. With the average a bit smaller, but basically most people die at that point. And I'm particularly aware of this at the moment because my father's 93. And his friends are all in that age group, and you can see that they still want to spend money, but they're still alive and kicking. I mean, they're alert, and some of them, they would be traveling if they could, if COVID permitted.
Yeah, well, that'll be you and me, Anthony. We're going to
that's right.
Life expectations. So yeah, I'd rather plan for a long life than a short life. But I guess half the people will outlive their life expectations. And to another point, I guess, is that you don't have, annuities help you budget, don't they? it's like a salary. You know how much you're getting, whereas
Exactly.
other things, it depends on investment returns very much. So, yeah, you're subject to the vagaries of the market, and you'd prefer to get something that kept pace with inflation and kept going until you're dead. That's what you.
And the evidence suggests that people who get pensions are happier with their lives than those that are not. There's been some research on that score, and it's been duplicated. And I'm happy that that's probably correct. That you're not worrying about how your budgeting problems are removed from you to a very large degree.
Yeah, well, that's my favourite study, Anthony. It's it's the University of Michigan, 1992. They got 26,000 Americans over age 50, and they've followed them through on a longitudinal study. And there's three things that are statistically significant, and you probably guessed the first two. The first one is health. They all want to have good health, and of course, if you haven't got that, no amount of money in the world is going to make you happy.
Right.
Secondly, it's the amount of money they've saved. The more money they have, the more things they can do. If they haven't got any money, they can't do anything. They'll sit at home and watch TV. The third thing was really interesting. It's the form of the benefit. So the people who have lifetime income streams are happier, much happier statistically than those that don't. I thought, well, yeah, probably it makes a lot of sense. All of my friends that have lifetime income streams, they don't worry about investment markets. They don't talk about what the stock market's doing. They're just living. They've got a salary. They just keep going. So there's a fellow called Moshe Malevsky, who's probably, as you know, the worldwide leader. I'll just quote from his book. Behavioural evidence is growing that retirees receiving lifetime income streams are happier and more content in retirement than those receiving equivalent levels of income. Indeed, with those who have Alzheimer's are even happier.
Well, their families are happier as well. Yeah, I mean, that's, again, personal experience. We had to take quite aggressive, assertive action when my mother-in-law developed Alzheimer's to protect her assets against opportunists.
Yeah.
While at least her pension was safe.
Anthony, we've reached the end of my session here, but there's one question we didn't cover. Isn't there a trade-off between three things? The income that lasts for life and maintains its value in real terms, the access to cash, and leaving a bequest. So what are your views on these three aspects, and what relative weight do you think people should place on them?
Well, as I say, I think for the flexibility, well, there are two things with the actual cash. The one is, it's quite likely when you retire that you have some intentions to travel a little or to spend more money. I mean, there may be, upgrade the house or whatever. And so those, I think, of short-term, relatively short-term targets where you should put money, you can put money aside for that. And you might well decide to spend more money. You should budget for spending more money in your first 10 years of retirement than in the last 10 years. Or, the first half than the last half. The first half could be longer. And we don't currently have life annuities that pay while you can travel, although I think there's perhaps potentially a market for that. In fact, I think when I was Deloitte, they suggested what we should be developing for our clients was the Qantas golf annuity. So as long as you could play golf and travel on Qantas, you've got an extra amount of money. And when you couldn't do that any longer, it disappeared. Anyway, I mean, that's, and I don't think that's a entire joke, because that is the situation. We know that people's expenditure drops over lifetime. So you should put money aside for your immediate expenses and for probably a few more luxuries and travel expenses in your first half of retirement. You should also have money, probably 6 months of cash at least, as a buffer. If you want to give a bequest, I think in most cases you should make specific provisions for it. I mean, if you want to set up a trust, we'll do that. Or if you want to put money aside for your grandchildren's education, do that. Because if they're going to need it, and then you need to make specific provisions for it. And then having done that, spend the rest. Maybe you start with how much you want to spend and then decide what you're going to do with the other things. But I think those are the three things that need to be done.
Thank you, Associate Professor Anthony Asher. It was really great to talk to you. I know we get on very well, and the whole group does. So thank you very much for doing this interview with us, and congratulations again on the paper that's been produced. It's landmark. It should go worldwide. It's that important. Thanks, Anthony.
Oh, David, thank you. I think you exaggerate that a bit, but I, as always, enjoy talking to you. Hope I haven't said too much.